everyone, welcome back to the second part of week 9 session. We're going to be talking risk management, and that is one of the fundamental element that we have to take in consideration, and that has to be properly looked after when we are managing any kind of project. Because if risk is not properly managed, it is not being identified or it is not being mitigated, the consequences are that the project team, the project manager will be under quite a serious pressure, and then we will be, as a project team, doing more or less firefighting. So in simple terms, risk is the possibility of something unexpected happening in project. So we have to see what is the probability or the possibility that the risk will be high, low or medium within a project, or the key deliverables, or when we are doing the milestone. So what is the mechanism, what is the practice, and what are the key tools and technique that we can adopt and apply to make sure that the risk is already managed, it has been identified, analyzed, action is taken, and then you monitor and control the risk so the project is safe and we deliver what is being planned as per our baseline, or the expected benefit of the project has been, or to be that the end user get the benefit as a beneficiary, and these benefits are realized. And during the management or during the life of the different phases of the project, we, even there something happens which is unexpected, will be properly managed and looked after, because risk involves uncertainty about the effect, implication of any activity with respect to something that human value, with the, let's say, your key people, their health, well-being, for example, the general environment which can has direct or indirect effect on the project execution, or during the project different deliverables to be managed. So we have to think about project if there is something negative, undesirable consequences, and that can impact the progress of the project. So risk management is a need to be identified, evaluated, prioritized, so we can then follow quite coordinated economical steps for the application or the utilization of key resources in order to minimize, monitor, control the probability or impact of any unfortunate event, or in the other simple words, you can say how to maximize the realization of the opportunities and avoid or minimize any threat. So what exactly we mean in project management when we talk about risk or risk management? You can see in the slide that risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and controlling any threat or threats to any project, organization, capital, or earning. That's a general definition for risk management. So these threats or risks could stem from a wide variety of sources, including financial uncertainty. It can be legal liabilities, strategic management errors, accidents, and natural disaster. Is more or less like you are doing pastel or staple analysis. So there are a number of forces which can directly or indirectly affect any project or the environment of the organization. So similar is the case in any project when we find that something is unexpected and the chances that going to happen. If that happen, how we will be able to manage. So risk management in project, in any kind of project, is basically the process which is used by the project management team or the project managers to minimize any potential problem or threat that may negatively impact a project's time schedule or its budget or its quality or scope, for example. So risk is any unexpected event that might affect the project team, key stakeholders, the project processes, the tools and techniques that are supposed to be used, or the resources they are involved in particular project. So project risk management is basically the process that project manager or project team, they use the process to manage potential risk with high, medium, low probability or impact that may affect a project in one or the other way, either positively or negatively. So risk is not necessarily is always negative. It can also be sometimes positive. So when we say risk in project management, we say the probability of suffering harm or loss is, according to the Project Management Institute body of knowledge definition, that yes, the definition of risk is a possibility of suffering harm or loss. So but you can see here, risk taking in a project is inevitable since projects are enabler of change, and change introduces uncertainty, and that is risk. So risk consists of combination of the probability of perceived threat or opportunity occurring and the magnitude of its impact on the set objective or objectives of the project, where threat is used to describe an uncertain event that could have a negative impact on the set objective of the project, or the other side, opportunity is used to describe again an uncertain event that could have a favorable impact on the set objectives of the project, but still it is not expected, or it can be unexpected situation where you have very high demand which create risk, though it's positive, but how we will be capable to handle such kind of situation where there is pressure. So we need the right preparation to be in place. So when we say risk management and we define risk in context of project management, we say risk is the for the management team, they use risk management as a key tool because it is necessary to assume the measures that's referring to same risk of the project and accomplishing the project set objective. So we try to use the process as a risk management, or we call it project risk management system, which should be used on the competencies of the project team or the project manager. They are willing to use this process to achieve project set objective or fundamental goals and the purpose of the project, or the key benefit to be realized end of the project. So the system for project risk management supposed to use to track down all the processes and their exposure with the occurrence of any kind of unexpected events, as well as the circumstances that generate risk and determine their effect on the objective of any any particular kind of project we are executing or we are managing. So the key principle in risk management, because the core principle that drive decision making to prioritize and mitigate risk are likely they need to be embedded quite deeply within the project management team, and the project manager and the management team, they have to carry some expertise and knowledge to review, and they understand the basics of the risk and how they can handle or mitigate or manage, so they can reinforce the key principle that can help to demonstrate how robust risk management program can be implemented in the project to support the achievement of the set objective, and the project has to be aligned within the organization strategic objective. So the risk can include a number of issues, and we know that number of principles can be then taken in consideration because the risk key principles, according to even the international set standards, that how different kind of risk need to be managed with contingencies, or there should be a proper guideline. So we have quite proactive plan in place using the key principles. So the International Organization for Standardization, they identifies the following key principle for risk management. For example, risk management should create value. Resources that expended to mitigate risk should be less than the consequences of the inaction. However, it is important that when you do risk management, one of the key principles, the integral part of it going to be the part of the organization processes, and we have to apply risk management for the standardization of the any organization key principles. We take risk as one of the key component as integral part of the organization key processes, and it can also be part of the decision making processes, and that can explicitly address uncertainty or the assumptions that we believe which we have the unfavorable or unexpected situation. So the principle of risk management can help to assist the organization for supporting their projects with risk by a systematic and structured processes to be in place, and it can be also applied and used based on the best available of the key information, and then we have the alternative if a situation happens and we, instead of getting stuck, what is the alternative next option. So we need to have the right information to make a quick decision accordingly, and then it's going to be also helpful to be dynamic, iterative, and responsive if there is a need for any change. And also the principles for risk management also help to be capable of continual improvement and enhancement, as well as be continually or periodically reassessing to make sure that if something is more profitable with the alternative options we have in hand, and which is the more appropriate option that when we make a decision. Again, making decision for adopting any change or rejecting any change, it's all depend on the profit and loss when you are taking risk and what is in the best favor of the project, as well as how it will be aligned to the strategic objective of the organization. That is the key principle of the risk management. So when we say how we manage that risk, we need to identify, assess, review, control, mitigate, as well as monitor. So that the key steps within the project risk management process as a framework for the action that need to be taken. It begins with identifying risk, goes on to analyze risk, then the risk has to be prioritized, a solution has to be implemented, and finally the risk needs to be monitored and controlled, and in a system with the risk log and the register to be updated with the anytime we do review of different risks, either they are medium, low, or high nature. So we need to see the framework which is going to be applied, and that has the 5 fundamental steps. The first bit we have to do in the risk management to identify what are the potential risks. So that can be done through our brainstorming session from our experience and the data repositories from the past project, that what we can encounter during the life of the project and what are the probability and impact. That what we have to do through assessing. When we identify a list of risks, we do the analysis, and then we have to put the plan in place, that what is the action. Either we have to accept the risk, or we have to transfer the risk, or we have to reject the risk. And then we implement the plan in place, and then we do monitor and keep controlling. If there's a risk is going to be high or medium or low, then we need to accordingly take action as the behavior of the risk to tackle it, to mitigate the risk. So the first step, when we have to identify risk, this is important, what tools and technique we can apply. So we use previous data from various repositories, previous project data, and then we also do some research, and we get the experience of our whole team or stakeholders and get their brainstorming session, and we find out what did work, what did not work in our past projects or in the past experience. So then we have to have a gut feeling, and we use our best guess and educated guess, and we have to see what we can anticipate and what is our best educated guess for the future, that what may happen or may not happen. So then we document the review, and we see what is the possibility or probability through brainstorming session and our discussion. We try to apply a business model through strength and weaknesses, opportunity and threats, SWOT analysis model, to see what can happen and what we have in hand as our strength, what are the weaknesses, how we can convert our weaknesses into strength or further strengthen our strength, and then how we can grab the opportunities or maximize the opportunities, and how we can minimize or reduce the threat. So we need to also do expert judgment at the same time. We can apply a Delphi technique. That is again very important as we are doing any kind of like research project within the project. Cause and effect diagram, the problem to be identified, and as we discussed last week, not just identifying the problem, what are the causes of the problem and what will be the effect. So we do apply this Ashikawa diagram or fishbone diagram as one of the key important you can say technique or tool for risk identification. So when the risk is identified, we'll list the all potential risk, and we'll use the lens to apply the method to list down all major or minor risk, or high, medium, or low risk. And then when the risks are identified, what we have to do, we have to then apply, for example, cause and effect diagram. And that is where we need, it just look like the fish diagram. So we see what is the problem. Is the problem a bad coffee, for example? So what is the causes? Is it the procedure, or the people, or the material, or the equipment? And if it is, for example, people, it can be because number of effects, they are not trained, they don't have the right skills or aptitude or attitude, for example. So we basically see this fishbone diagram can help to not only identifying the problem, but the pitfall, that what is the causes and effect. And we can see the draw like the fish major and minor bones, and then we put the causes and effect to address, and then the problem will be solved as the potential risk. We, after identifying risk, the next step is to analyze risk. When we are analyzing risk, we have to apply the metrics, because the data analysis drives risk management. That is a very important for risk planning, and we can split data analysis into two categories: qualitative as well as quantitative. So that's your judgment, but you also take the numeric numbers with the either the percentage, or you get out of certain intervals. So you need to see the qualitative analysis that can be non-mathematical or non-numeric method to determine the probability as your best judgment or your anticipation. But quantitative data analysis focus on the mathematical or statistical measurement, and that is the risk event and its impact that has to be defined, how it's going to impact the objective of the project or its different processes. And you can see the data that we are collecting, we put in the matrix, and that is probability impact metric, or sometimes we call it PI matrix. So in this metric, we know what will be the probability for different kind of potential identified risk that will happen or may not happen. If they're going to happen, what the probability is high, medium, or low, or if that's going to happen with the impact on the project objective, would the impact be low, medium, or high? So this is where we need then put all the risk, either they are in the red alert, red light, or you can say red region, or alert, high alert region, or they are in the low green calm region, or they are in somewhere in between in the yellow or amber region. So we basically trying to mitigate then the risk. That's important. So we identify risk, we analyze it, we see the probability and impact, we know the probability, the likelihood, if they happen or may not happen, what is the chances, is high or low or medium, and then of course we need to see the consequences on the project objective, the impact, is it going to be very high or just medium or low, and then accordingly we put this risk in the matrix, and then we have to manage or mitigate the risk accordingly. So risk mitigation is quite important technique to apply within project to ensure that the risk has been identified, analyzed, as well as mitigated. So when we apply the metric here, we do the simple mathematics. The risk can be either positive or it can be negative. If it is negative, it is a threat. If it is positive, this is an opportunity. However, we need to do the probability impact grid. The metric has to be applied here. So if let's say we calculate between 1 to 5 scale, and then we see what is the likelihood this risk will happen. So we say the probability is 90%. That's quite high. So from 90 to 10%, we put the risk in the grid where we believe from 10% to 90%, or we can say the chances that it will be very likely to very unlikely. And then of course we see what will be the impact on the project. So we need to see again, if you apply the same scale and we apply, let's say, from 1 till 10, and then we see if it is, for example, 1 or up to 10%, so that is very low, or it is, let's say, 80 above, that is very high. So then if the likelihood is 90% and the impact is 80%, so it means the probability impact grid, we multiply 9 by 8, that is 72, and that is very high percentage. So anything comes in the red zone area and we multiply, let's say, 7 by 4, so that is 28. Still it is very high, but something which is in between very low to very high, we put them in yellow or amber zone, and then we believe this all risks still need to be taken care, but the risk in the red zone, they are very high alert and that needs more attention. And the one in the amber, that is a modern or medium range of risk, still need our concentration, but the calm risk or the low probability risk or low impact risk are in the green region, but we cannot just ignore them. We have to be also paying some attention to ensure that they should not turn to from green to amber or red. So it needs all planning. So planning is a paramount. That is very vital and important for a project as well as within the key component of project risk. So we do risk planning. That's the primary goal of the plan step, is to prepare specific management responses to the threat and opportunities identified, ideally to remove, reduce the threat and minimize the threat, rather on the other side to maximize and grab the opportunities. So we have to see the response on one end to avoid, on the other end to get the best out of it. So this is quite need to be balanced between both ends, that how the risk is identified, it is analyzed, mitigated, and then how we can put planning in place. So that is the one of the key important area, because we have plus and minuses for any risk. So risk planning is basically the process of identifying, prioritizing, and managing risk. Even project for any project or any initiative within the project to achieve its set of objective or goals, the risk planning basically involves identifying the most important risk event in advance, prioritizing them, and then developing an appropriate risk response plan. So risk management plan is basically the document that project manager prepares, or the project team they involve and responsible for risk mitigation or risk management. They prepare this kind of risk plan or risk plan document to foresee the risk, estimate the impact, and then define the response to the risk. It also contains a risk assessment matrix. A risk, we know that's an uncertain event or unexpected event that's going to happen, or condition that if it occur, or it may not occur even. So if it occur, we have the preparation in place or in hand, and that has either negative or positive effect on the project objective, needs to be tackled properly or appropriately. So when it is just like you need to carry your umbrella if there is a risk or chances of the rainfall. Even if the rainfall is not there, so you are still prepared. If the rainfall happens, so you have the contingency and you have your planning, that you have an umbrella with you so you can easily walk down. So planning within the project risk management, when we say risk planning, we have to take some action and we have to respond to the different situation because either we have to put the plan in place that the risk will be accepted, or it has to be minimize, mitigate, or reduce, or then if it is accepted, what is the contingency in place? That is more important. So you can read between these key terms that how to avoid any risk and reduce, as well as if you want to have the contingency that has to be put in place within the risk planning. So we need to transfer risk sometime if you don't want to handle it, or for example in a project you get the risk outsource. For example, the project of construction is going in a particular area and there's a very high crime in that particular region or area, or there is a very high rate of theft. So you have on site of construction lot of heavy equipments, health and safety issues. So you prefer not to take all the risk as an organization. You take an insurance or security organization, so they will be responsible 24/7 to provide security and health and safety measure to be taken in consideration for the staff security and all the resources on site. So we can transfer the risk to a third party. That is also possible, or we can accept or reject the risk. Do we want to avoid the risk? We need to mitigate, accept, transfer, and then we have to put this in our plan, and then we have to take the action to have the response for that particular risk, how it will be mitigated or managed in-house or outsource. So the implementation strategy for risk. Primary goal of implementation step is to ensure that the planned risk response are actioned, their effectiveness is monitored, and corrective actions taken where response do not match expectation, for example. So the process of putting a strategic plan of managing identified threat or opportunities and exploiting opportunities into action is basically called the implementation of the risk management plan. So in addition of the risk mitigation, the implementation can be done in different ways. So there are different steps that we need to implement risk management framework, and that has to be done as a risk policy to establish in context of identified risk, how it is analyzed, and then what is the threat and opportunity to manage the risk, and how you communicate this risk with all key stakeholders to monitor and control and then update the record accordingly. So important rules in this respects are the risk who gonna be taking all ownership. So we need to nominate someone as a risk manager, or maybe there is a risk management team, depend how big is the organization. In very small organization, the project manager take all the responsibilities. As the project is increasing, you need other people to lead risk as a separate domain within the project, as quality, as well as budget, as well as all the other key component of the project. If it's a huge project, for example, sometimes even the risk is being taken by the internally by the organization. They own all responsibility. Like for example, Heathrow Terminal 5, the British Airways, they were taking all the responsibilities for the risk, and there were 60 primary contractors involved, and they were with a peace of mind to concentrate on the project delivery on time and within scope and quality, and not to be worried about any kind of risk, because it was all the responsibility of risk was taken in-house. So sometimes the ownership can be given to a particular individual or a team, depend how big is the project and the risk, and that if somebody is assigned, that has to be then responsible to manage risk with both positivity and negativity. So then we have to take action. Who is the person to take action? So when the risk is identified, is owned, there will be someone to take care of the risk and take particular or specific action accordingly. And then put this information in the risk register or the log, and then we have to update it every time we review the risk during the life of the project, and we can go through all the high, medium and low risk with the project risk probability impact grid, and then we update the log or the register if the risk is low, medium or high, and who is responsible, who is the person managing it, and who is taking action, what action has been taken so far, and what is the current status. Is the risk being completed, is it open, or it's still in progress? So then we have to carry this discussion forward with our week 9 discussion forum. Please read the article about the IT risk management forum, that is the reactive to be proactive with 5 steps to identify and mitigate risk in the IT sector. For example, how you can be proactive and consistent when you are having a situation with that's quite difficult, especially nowadays when we have a lockdown, COVID. What are the potential risks, and how risks are going to be tackled in future business scenarios and different project management? Do share your thoughts and ideas, and then we will continue our discussion in the workshop in the week 9. There are a number of few articles and videos. Do review them and read a chapter from your core book as well as the book they are recommended as your recommended text. All the best. Take care. We'll talk in the workshop.